my name is Olivia OGiauque, and this is the data overview of Mableton Elementary School for the ITech 7305 Data Analysis class. The purpose of this overview is to analyze Mableton Elementary School's demographics for the 2016-17, 2017-18, and 2018-19 school year. We will be comparing Mableton Elementary School's ELA milestone scores to Cobb County School District as well as the state of Georgia scores. Within this analysis and overview, we will be able to highlight strengths and identify opportunities for improvement. How will we do this? We will do this by looking at Mableton Elementary student demographics over the 3 years and analyze changes. We will look at Mableton Elementary School teacher demographics over 3 years and analyze changes within that. We will analyze 3rd through 5th grade, end of grade Georgia milestone scores. And we will compare these scores from Mableton to Cobb County School District as well as the state of Georgia. And Mableton Elementary scores will be analyzed by race and ethnicity to identify achievement gaps and possible solutions to close these gaps. There will be questions to drive this analysis and overview and things that I want my audience to be thinking about. What is the current reality at Mableton Elementary School? How are students performing compared to their peers? How are students compared to their peers within the district as well as the state? What are the teachers doing well, and how is that affecting their students? What can teachers do to improve their practice? And how can we support students at a below grade level and help them meet their academic success? When we zoom in on Mableton Elementary as a whole, it was established in 2012, serving grades kindergarten through 5th grade. It's located in Mableton, Georgia, within the Cobb County School District in the South Cobb cluster. Mableton Elementary School is a Title I government-funded school receiving extra funding for programs and resources for our students. Looking at the student enrollment over 3 years, from 2016 and 17 to 2017 and 18 to 2018 and 19, there has been a slight decrease in the amount of students at Mableton Elementary School, going from 1,200 students to 1,147 to 1,143, which is a slight decrease in the amount of students over the 3 years. When we look at the student population enrollment by race and ethnicity, we can see that Hispanic and Black students are the highest population at Mableton Elementary School, with an increase from 2016 to 2017 to the 2018 and 19 of Hispanic students, and a slight decrease from 2016 to 2018-19 of our Black students. While we have no Asian or Native American students, we have a consistent population of white students as well as a consistent population over the 3 years for our multiracial students. When we break down the gender of our students, we can see that males slightly outnumber females at Mableton Elementary School over the 3 years, with there being a higher gap in between the 2016-17 year and then that gap closing as the year move on. When we break down Mableton Elementary School by subgroups, we can see that this pale pink graph on each of the 3 represents students eligible for free and reduced meals, with students ranging from 77% to 81% of students receiving free and reduced meals means Mableton Elementary School qualifies to be a Title I funded school. We can also see that 34%, 37%, and 38% of students at Mableton Elementary School over the years are limited in English proficiency. And that is something, as we're analyzing data, to consider. How can we serve these students and make sure that they are receiving what they need to build their English vocabulary? There has been a slight increase over the 3 years of limited in English proficiency, and something to definitely keep an eye on to serve those students. And then our third subgroup is the students with disabilities. While there was a slight decrease over 1 year and then it increased again, we need to think about how can we serve these students with disabilities. When we look at teacher demographics by gender, we can see that females greatly outnumber males at Mableton Elementary School, 73 to 6, 71 to 5. So we want to think about how can we increase the number of male teachers so students can see these teachers as role models, make connections, and learn from them in a different way. When we break down the teacher demographics by race and ethnicity, we can see that the majority of teachers at Mableton Elementary School are white, majority of them being white females, with the second highest population of teachers being Black and then Hispanic. We want to think about how can we increase the diversity at Mableton Elementary School so students can feel connected, can see their culture in their teachers, can learn from others, and I think it would be a good thing to increase cultural diversity at Mableton. When we look at the teacher demographics broken down by degree level, we can see that majority of the teachers hold a bachelor's degree, with the next step of an increase of master's degrees, and then after that an increase in specialist degree, while over half of the population holds an advanced degree. That makes that a strength for Mableton Elementary School. When we break down the demographics by years of experience, we can see teachers ranging from 1 to 10 years makes up half of the population at Mableton Elementary School, and those numbers stay consistent over the 3 years of data. We can also see that the second highest number is teachers teaching from years 11 to 20 years, and then it decreases from 20 to 30. And we want to ask ourselves, why is there such a sharp decrease from the 1 to 10 years to the 11 to 20 years? And what makes teachers leave Mableton after that amount of experience? Now that we've taken the time to review the demographics of the student and teacher population at Mableton, we're going to look at the Georgia Milestone Assessment. And students are scored based on 4 achievement levels: beginning, developing, proficient, and distinguished, with students scoring in the beginning and developing levels show that they are demonstrating partial or very little proficiency of the knowledge and skills necessary for the standards, where students scoring in the proficient and distinguished learners show that they demonstrate proficiency, mastery of these standards, they are advanced, and they are ready and prepared to move on to the next grade level, while students in the beginning and developing learners will require extra support and help to get caught up to where they need to be. When we look at Mableton 3rd through 5th graders as a whole from the 2016 to the 2019 school year, we're looking at the ELA milestone scores. And when we focus in on the levels of beginning learners, developing learners, proficient, and distinguished, we can see that the highest percentage we have scoring at Mableton is in the beginning learners level, while the lowest level is in the distinguished learners. And this is something where we want to see a flip-flop, where we want our highest number of students scoring in the distinguished side of the graph, with the lowest scoring in the beginning learners side of the graph. And we can see that from 16 to 17 to 18, there was a slight decrease in number of students scoring in the beginning category, a slight increase in students scoring in the developing, and a slight increase in students scoring in distinguished. When we compare Mableton to the state and the district, across the board, we can see that Mableton is scoring lower than the state and the district, with 41% of our students scoring in the beginning learners category. We can see in the developing learners there is a consistency across the state, the district, and the school. But then when we come over to distinguished, we can see that Mableton is scoring lower and an area of improvement needed there. For the next year, we can see somewhat of a similar trend. Mableton is still scoring with the most students in the beginning learners compared to the state and district, and the least amount of students over here in the distinguished learners category compared to the state and district, something that we want to see increase over time. And it is a trend between the 2 years. For the 18-19 school year for ELA, we can see that Mableton is still the highest in the beginning learning, with it very close in the developing learners. And we can see there's been an increase in proficient and an increase in distinguished. So slight increases are still something to celebrate, and to see that over time there is an increase in proficient and distinguished, and there is a decrease in beginning learners. So something to focus on. Even if they are small gains, it is still something to think about and analyze. So when we think of the comparison between the district, the state, and the school, we can see that Mableton Elementary students at the beginning level decreased 4.9% over the 3 years. And there was also a 2.5 increase in distinguished learners at Mableton Elementary School over 3 years. The developing learners stayed the same, and there was a slight decrease in the proficient learners at Mableton Elementary. We can also see from that comparison that the district and state are outperforming Mableton Elementary in the proficient and distinguished achievement areas over 3 years, and something we want to ask ourselves, what are they doing at their schools that are having student success? What can we learn from them, and what can we collaborate with others to figure out how we can help our own students? So to focus in on Mableton Elementary School's scores based on race and ethnicity, we know that Mableton has a high population of Hispanic and Black students, and we want to figure out how can we close achievement gaps among the races and ethnicities at Mableton. And we can see that Hispanic students have the highest scoring beginning level learners, while they are the lowest scoring in the distinguished levels. We can see that there is a drastic difference here between the multiracial students. We can see that many of the proficient learners and developing learners are scoring on all different levels between the races. When we move on to the next school year, we can see that the achievement gap between the white students and the distinguished learners and the proficient learners is higher than the Hispanic, multiracial, and Black in both levels. And that's something to consider. What can we do to help these students to level the playing field and to even out these achievement gaps and diminish the gaps in general? We can see that Hispanic students are still scoring the highest in the beginning learners, and that is something to consider. Why is this happening? As the 2018-19 school year, we are looking at the breakdown as well by ethnicity, and we can see that the proficient learners have the achievement gap is starting to even out. Same with the distinguished learners. We can see that the Black students have made an increase in distinguished learners as well as Hispanic students. And so we would want to analyze deeper into these breakdowns by years and figure out what were the teachers doing the school year before to prepare these students for these assessments. So some strengths that were noted throughout the analysis of the data and the graphs, we can see that there has been an increase in proficient learners within the last year. The achievement gap between white and Black and Hispanic students scoring at proficient gets smaller within the last year, which is positive because something has been put into place to help that. We have a large number of teachers with advanced degrees at Mableton Elementary and a large number of teachers with multiple years of experience, which can provide students opportunities and help them. Some areas of improvement: Hispanic students are the highest scoring in beginning learners. So some questions to ask you are, how can we support English language learners in their English proficiency and move them out of the beginning learners? Mableton Elementary School is scoring the lowest in the achievement levels of proficient and distinguished, and we want to ask ourselves, what can we do to increase the number of proficient learners and the number of distinguished learners and move those students out of those lower scoring areas? We also want to continue to work on the achievement gaps between white and Black and Hispanic students and figure out how can we decrease these achievement gaps? What can we put into place to help these students? So some next steps to consider are to use the data to drive future instruction. What can teachers do? They can disaggregate the data into strands to analyze and create small groups for remediation. They can analyze the reading units they've been teaching and prioritize standards to teach to build those foundational skills in reading for all students and all racial groups. And they can also train teachers on best practices for English language learners to help build English language and vocabulary and help that Hispanic population move out of that beginning level.